The era we currently live in has undergone a significant change in comparison to the state of our civilization and the planet 7 or 8 decades ago. After considering the differences, only one item truly stands out in my opinion. Why do guys no longer approach women the same way they used to? Before social media, smartphones, and the internet, there was no fast method to contact women no matter how far away they were from you. Men used to physically approach women and express their interest in them back then since there was no other method to engage with women. Before he could take her out on a date, he had to adhere to social conventions by dressing beautifully and even talking to her parents. In the modern world, both men and women have access to each other from anywhere and at any time. There was a lot of work involved back then. Everything needed to be planned in advance. It was easier and, I suppose, slightly more thrilling. You probably had a picture in your head of someone you saw and loved since you didn't have the luxury of looking her up on social media. And this is what compelled guys to go see the woman in person and request their time with her. People dated largely inside their own groups back then since that was how things operated at the time. The distances were far and wide and always became a problem. Unlike today, when you can get in touch with someone from across the world and get to know them online in real time. So men and women both did not have such luxuries back then and in fact, did not have the luxury of being able to interact with just about anyone they liked. There were formalities involved. The girls had to take permission. The guys had to take the girls' parents' permission before they could meet them. It was serious business back then. There was little interaction. Before getting married, men had a maximum of 2 opportunities to meet and get to know women. Because they had no other choice, guys had no choice but to approach women. And for this reason, I believe that the level of chemistry, connection, and mutual understanding was much higher than it is now due to the numerous distractions we face nowadays. On social media, a person seeking someone could like one person, but they might also like 5 other individuals. They would have half-hearted conversations online, and even during dating, they'd still be engrossed in their phones trying to get the perfect click for the gram or speaking on a group chat. I mean, we are super connected now as compared to before, yet we are utterly disconnected from each other and our realities. It's crazy. So why aren't men approaching women anymore? I think it's because men usually see the pros and cons of everything before they take any action. And the cons of approaching women these days are far higher than the pros. Approaching women is almost certain to getting humiliated, labeled a creep, or just ignored and socially ostracized today. Why? Because women view men on average as predators or guys just being desperate. Sure, they'll be okay if they already know a guy and want him to approach. That's another thing. But for a man to approach an unknown woman is just not worth it. The risks are too great. Social humiliation and complete ignorance, along with a general fear of getting turned down, just seems too risky. The average woman would embarrass the average guy more frequently than not if he politely approached her to start a discussion. I saw a video where a man tries to speak to a lady without being impolite or weird, and she just makes a complete fool of him. For giggles and attention, and maybe taking a shot at being viral, the woman published the contact to social media after fabricating the story that he was a weirdo. As I saw this unfold, I found myself wondering why in the world I would want to approach a lady today. We also need to realize that various guys are treated differently by different women in order to comprehend why this is taking place. So let me clarify what this implies, since I know you might be confused about it. I want you guys to consider status and how one's perceived worth affects how they are treated. Consider instances in your own life where you were approached by a beggar or a homeless person who appeared disheveled. You immediately went on the defensive and decided not to communicate with them or offer them anything. The same is true for women, although today's situation is far worse than it was a century ago. Women must always exercise additional caution since they may at any time be seized against their will by a male. The issue arises, though, when you witness a woman publicly humiliating a man for just speaking to her while she is out in a public place with a large group of onlookers and knows she is somewhat secure. So if we dig a little further, we can only deduce that contemporary women no longer appreciate the typical male or men in general. Returning to my subject of status, do you believe a woman would treat Jeff Bezos the same way if she is known for showing disdain for the average and below average men that approach her? Absolutely not. Jeff Bezos is an established billionaire with prestige, power, and authority. That woman wouldn't dare insult or degrade a man who is unquestionably superior to her. As a result, as you can see, everything ultimately comes down to a man's standing and perceived value depending on how he acts, speaks, and approaches the woman. A woman will treat various guys differently depending on how she sees them, as I mentioned previously. and if she doesn't think the man is superior to her, she'll treat him like he's worthless or inferior. On the other hand, if she believes that a guy is superior to her, she would treat him with respect and be more accepting of him. Take a look at how a lady and her employer interact. Now imagine who she'd treat with respect if they approached her, the boss or the janitor. It's very clear that contemporary women no longer respect men, and I believe that the majority of guys have realized this and have chosen not to engage in conversation with these women. Today, men have decided to just not indulge in any behavior that allows women to disrespect and invalidate them. Women's behavior towards men has just gone down the drain, and men have realized this. They have chosen their reputation, integrity, and respect over the disrespect and humiliation extended by women towards them. Seriously, I'd be much better off not approaching women because I swear I've heard stories of women calling the police over guys approaching them. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with the guys, it was just that they did not fit their profile in the looks and money departments. So why would I or anyone put myself through something like this? It doesn't make sense. Also, I think a very high percentage of women are just not even worth approaching anymore. I think that's what they want, to be publicly valued by men, so they can show off in their circles, humiliate the guy, and feel validated, which she isn't in any part of her life. Can modern women even be approached? If you want to be contacted, you need to appear approachable. Otherwise, people will take one look at you and decide not to approach you, much less engage in conversation. And today's women carry themselves in public as if they were some sort of royalty. Another reason why men don't approach women anymore is how women behave in public. They are just not very approachable in the sense that they give off a vibe that says, "Don't bother me." I mean, if a guy had a really angry expression all the time that basically said, "Do not come near me," would any woman approach that guy? Not at all. The same thing applies to women in public and private settings. If a man sees a woman he likes and wants to start a conversation with, and she looks cold and closed off, he will assume she doesn't want to talk to anyone and he wouldn't want to approach that woman. That is how important smiling and looking inviting with an open body language is. But modern women don't care and aren't willing to change. So likewise, men are just not going to approach, and that's that. But when men don't approach, they bushland complain that men are not approaching. So whenever men see women they like, and even if they want to approach her, her body language and expression turns them away. And then women complain that guys don't approach them anymore. Ladies, if you want someone to approach you, at least work on yourself to have a better and more pleasant look. You don't have to look like you're going to burst with rage any moment all the time. Otherwise, men are just going to ignore you, even if you want them to approach you. Men just have had it with women's excessive expectations. Women don't want a man who is unattractive, drives a Honda, or doesn't have letter A, B, or C in his name. Understand what I mean? Yet they continue to cheat on guys who already have all they desire. Men are now starting to wake up and understand all of this. They don't have time to waste worrying about women who make interacting with them pointless. Women don't appear to be aware of how essentially rigged the game is against guys. They desire what they desire. Men will also no longer engage in accepting the unsupportive behaviors of women. Men will therefore just enjoy their free time while working hard, avoiding distractions, and cheerfully pursuing their hobbies. They are better off engaging with women online to determine who they can spend their time with because they have more options now. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.